Okay. We are back for another segment of Let's Talk Live during our Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And I am joined by Miss Cheryl. Am I saying, is it Austin or Alston?
Alston, you're right.
Austin. For this particular segment, which is our survivor story. And she's going to share her journey with you all. But before we do that, Miss Cheryl, will you please let everybody know who you are and tell us a little bit about how you advocate for colorectal cancer?
Thank you. Shamika almost called you Cassandra because of Cassandra Cares. But yeah, thank you for having me tonight. I am actually North Carolina native, 11-year colon cancer survivor, stage 2. I actually call myself a colon cancer conqueror. But my advocacy work started in my first year of healing in 2013, and then 2014 I started doing dress in blue parties every year. The first weekend, if it wasn't the first Friday, it was the first weekend of March, I was doing dress in blue parties. And then I got connected with Colon Cancer Coalition as a local event director, and and started hosting Get Your Rear and Gear with them. In 2021, as I was still doing my parties every year, 2021, I got connected with Fight CRC. And I've been doing something since 2014, advocating for others who can't advocate for themselves, or like me, who didn't understand what advocacy meant. So with going to call on Congress, with passing out flyers as a resource champion, and as somebody just doing the dress in blue parties for awareness and attending wellness fairs. That's how I'm doing my advocacy work and getting the word out.
Okay. I like that you use conqueror. I use warrior sometimes.
Yeah.
It's kind of same thing. I don't know, survivor. I don't know if that's the appropriate term. I don't know. I hear survivor and I'm like, well, I kind of think about it as warrior. So 11-year survivor, and when you were diagnosed, you were stage 2?
I was stage 2.
Okay.
And so I was 56 years old, so I had already missed that 50-year window. Back then it was, you need to be screened at 50 years old.
So you were 56 when you were diagnosed?
Yes.
Okay.
My first colonoscopy at 56 years old, October 25th, 2013. And that's when I found out.
Okay. And at that time, so we're talking, what's this, like 2013?
Yes.
So what was the age for screening at that time? Was it 50 at that time?
50. It was 50. But you know what I was doing? I was losing the referrals from my doctor for the colonoscopy, because I'm like, number one, I knew you had to have anesthesia. And I said, when I go to sleep, I want to go to sleep and take a nap. I don't want somebody putting me to sleep.
Yeah.
So, and that was kind of frightening for me. And the other thing is, I was like, man, I'm good. I don't need that. But in 2008, when I had some lab work done, my primary care, and when she got the lab work back, I had 0 iron in my body. So that should have told them something then. So she says, I'm not saying you have cancer, but I'm sending you to a hematology oncologist. So I went to his office. I walked in, I gave him my paperwork, and he said, he looked at it. I never will forget the look on his face. And he said, my goodness, how are you still alive?
Wow.
So when the doctor asked you, how are you still living? So I really got shaken up, and he saw my eyes begin to water. And he said, no, 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 no. Don't worry. I'll fix you. And I said, well, can I take some pills, iron pills? He was like, no, there's no amount of pills I can give you that can bring you back from where you are. So I started a regimen of intravenous iron for like 8 to 10 weeks in his office, in a recliner with magazines and television going. And it took him about an hour and a half for that bag of iron to drip. And I did that for like 8 weeks just to build my iron back in my body.
And that was 2008.
That was in 2008. So
So a few
something was
years
going on.
later,
Yeah. So here I am in 2013. But here's the thing though. My caregiver, Sheila, she said to me, I was beating myself up because at 56, when I was diagnosed, I was, man, I should have gone earlier. And she said, well, you know what? It may not have been there earlier. So you can't beat
that's
yourself
true.
up.
That's true.
Colorectal cancer is a slow growing cancer. So I'm pretty sure I had something going on in 2008, but by 2013, I was I was only stage 2. But the thing about that is I was so sick. One day I was so sick at work, and I kept saying to myself, um, I I felt like my clothes were closing in on me. And I'm like, are you gaining weight or something? I just, my clothes felt tight. I came home to change clothes, and coming home, I got sick, and I pulled over on the side of the road because I thought I needed to throw up. Got home, put on some looser slacks, and but I was still had this pain and still throwing up. What is wrong with me? Went to my primary care a few days later, and had some labs done. When they got the labs back, he said, okay, so here are your labs. Now this number right here, it showed the CEA is for cancer, and it heightens you, it's highlighted, but you don't have cancer. You're just lactose intolerant, and you have GERD. But Shamika, Tiffany, I didn't know at that time to say, well, if I don't have cancer, why is cancer showing up in my labs?
Mm-hmm.
I came home and I said, hey, the doctor says I don't have cancer. And so the first thing Sheila said was, well, why did cancer come up if you don't have cancer? And I'm like, duh. So that's when I said, I didn't ask the right questions. 2 weeks later, still feeling this pain and throwing up. I I said, hey, you know what, Dr. So-and-so, let me get that referral again for that colonoscopy. And that's when I went. I never will forget, October 25th, 2013, went for that colonoscopy, and my pictures were terrible. Black, just terrible, terrible pictures. And that's when we found out.
I want to ask you, I got somebody trying to join, but I want to ask you about this blood test. And you mentioned it on our last call, the
Mm-hmm.
CEA,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, CEA blood test,
Yes.
carcino, trying to remember what it stands for, carcino embryonic antigen.
Okay.
Can you
Good.
tell us a little bit more about that blood test, and maybe possibly why that's not something that we would think to say, hey, look at that number?
Well, and you're that's a good question, because when I just had some labs done at my other primary care, because I did leave those people, but and I said to her technician, do you all check CEA? Now they don't. That's not a regular lab that they would check for. So my thing now is that something that should be a part of the regular labs? The other thing is, my doctor must have known something was going on to check that number. And the only reason that I know of that number is not normally checked is because is out of the norm of your regular WBC and HCT, you know, and all that, the red blood counts and white blood. That's the only reason that I know, because nobody since then has checked CEA unless I've gone to my oncologist, which I still have.
So just a primary physician wouldn't, I mean, is the number there? Like whenever they draw blood and run tests, is that there, or they have to order it to be?
Yeah, they have to order it. They
Oh,
have to
okay.
order it because, and that was one of the things I asked when I went to my doctor a week or two ago. Do you do the CEA? And her technician said no.
Okay.
So, so I don't know. I don't. The only thing I can think of is because I was with that same physician when I had 0 iron in my body, and then in 2013 when I was sick again, is that the reason they, you know, they did that lab? But when they did it, why not go further and say, hey, you know what, we need to do something else, because you shouldn't be showing cancer. You know, if you're showing cancer, we need to pursue this further. And that's my heartburn that they did not do that.
So you're diagnosed at stage 2. Can you share a little bit about what your thought process was, your emotions, your mental space was at the time when you received that diagnosis?
You know what? All I heard was cancer, cancer, cancer. You know, my doctor, the GI, she she apologized to me because when she first woke me up from my colonoscopy, she said, Miss Alston, I am so sorry, you know, you have cancer. And we both, like Sheila was there with me, my caregiver, we both choked up when she said you have cancer. And that's all I heard was cancer, cancer, cancer. My saving grace was, or what helped me get through, was I had not had anything to eat or drink. So all I had to do was go right downstairs and, you know, drink that barium, wait an hour, drink another, wait an hour, and do those tests. But emotionally, all I could think of was, you know, I'm not going to be alive, you know, to talk to my children. You know, there's a lot of things I'm going to be missing out on because cancer, cancer, cancer. And at my age, then back in the day, once you're opened up, there's an air hits the cancer, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and that's all I can think about. I don't want into surgery because when the air hits it, I'm gonna be gone. But the thing that helped me was Sheila, again, my caregiver. Her mantra was but God.
Yeah.
So every time something came up, it was but God.
Mm-hmm.
And so what got me through was, one, having her keep reminding me that God was in control. Two, reminding me that I needed to stop blaming myself for not having gone to the doctor earlier. And then the third thing is, anytime I went to a doctor's appointment, she was the one that took notes, because once again, all I heard was cancer, cancer, cancer. Nothing they could tell me overrode cancer, 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 because that's all I heard.
I'm pretty sure you had to go through the radiation therapy, chemotherapy. Did you always have like a sidekick, someone there with you when you had to go in for treatment?
Well, thank you for asking that. Now, what in my case with this stage 2, it had not, they said it had just permeated the wall, but not affected any lymph nodes.
Okay.
So I did not have to go in, get a port, and do that chemo.
Okay.
My option after I had surgery, I forgot how much he told me, they took so much of my intestine out that I asked the doctor, am I going to be able to live? Well, that's when he said to me, the surgeon said to me, yeah, of course. You have a right colon, a left colon, and a transverse colon.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to cut this bad part out, and we're going to pull all that other together and resection you. When put a little super glue is what he said. Put a little super glue on there and pull you back together. So after I had surgery and I was out of work for a month healing, I had the option of taking a chemo called Zolota, which they had to send by UPS, and it had to have somebody at 21 years old at least to sign for it. And that was like 6 pills a day that I had to take. And at one point I could tell that something was going on with my feet and my hands. So I said to the doctor, I feel like the Tin Man, I get stuck and I need oil. And maybe that was neuropathy, but
Yeah.
so he reduced it by 1 pill. He said, you know what, you're getting a lot of chemicals in your body. So that's what's going on. And so yeah, so I did not have to have the port for the chemo.
Okay. Um, was there at any point an issue with your white blood cells? Like, were you healthy in that regard, or did you need any type of intervention in relation to your white blood cells?
No, I was healthy in that. The only thing is when I think back, and I was thinking about being on your call tonight, I thought back and I said, wow, that was 2008 when I had 0 iron in my body. What's going on with that? But and it's interesting that last week, no, Monday, when I got my results back, my iron count was a little bit high. And I said, well, what is that about? She says, well, it's nothing to be worried about. It's just, you know, there's your iron. And I'm thinking, well, I went from 0 iron, years ago to a lot now. But nothing other than that really bad tumor going on was what, affected me. I didn't have anything with the white blood cells.
Okay. And you had your surgery, you were out of work for 4 weeks. So you went back to work, and while you're working, you're still taking the pills.
Yep. Still taking the pills. I actually changed jobs in between that time. And for the 2 weeks when I was doing my interviews and everything, I, you know, I had to be very cautious about the way I was sitting because of the type of surgery I had. I couldn't just, plop down. You have to, gingerly sit. And they didn't know that I was still doing the chemo regimen, but there were certain things that I couldn't lift, still couldn't eat because if I had eaten something like broccoli and stuff like that, that would have ripped the surgical
Broccoli.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it would have ripped it open. They were saying I had to stay away from certain vegetables, while I was healing.
Okay. Oh, goodness. Now, as most of you know, this is something that I dealt with my mom, and I know her journey. Everybody's journey don't necessarily look the same. So I wanted to ask you questions about how your family kind of dealt with this journey with you.
Well, thank you. And you know what? People fear what they don't know. And if you notice, people hate talking about, well, let me just say dislike, because hate is a strong emotion. People dislike talking about any issues below the waist.
Yeah.
So, they'll talk about breast cancer, skin cancer, eye cancer, brain cancer, anything, cervical cancer, they don't want to talk about. Colon cancer, don't want to talk about. And so my family, I have a small family, and my daughter, her basic thing was she was sad, but she was upset because she was an only child, so she had to come from North Carolina to check on me. My brother, bless his heart and rest his soul, he he was so disconnected that he recently told me, well, he told me last year, he said, I see you doing all this advocacy work for colon cancer. Did you ever have colon cancer?
Oh, wow.
I'm like, dude, really? So people are so disconnected because they don't want to talk
Tiffany's
about
face.
what I'm telling you. They don't want to talk about what's up the butt. So I only had Sheila, my good friend I've been knowing for 20 some years. She was my caregiver. And even one time when I was talking about getting a colonoscopy, somebody said, you shouldn't talk about that stuff at the table. I'm like, well, I'm looking at what you're eating. I'm like, if I don't talk about it at the table, where else am I going to talk about? That's what's wrong. We don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell my friends, I say, well, you know what? You're going to hear the butt talk from me. The other thing is we want to stress colorectal cancer, saying colorectal,
Yes.
because we have friends we know people with rectal, anal cancer, and colon cancer. And mine happened to be colon cancer, but we want to make sure we put that emphasis when we say colorectal. I
Yeah.
have a little friend that's 30, and I call her little because of her age, but she's 30 something years old, was diagnosed last year, and she just had her ovaries moved up so she could have radiation. The cancer is so far down in her rectum that she has to have a permanent colostomy. But they raised her ovaries up so she could have radiation. Then after radiation, they went back in for surgery and moved her ovaries back down because she wants to have children.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that goes on with the different stages and what makes you, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a lot that goes on with colorectal cancer.
Now, for you, you didn't have to do any ostomy, ileostomy, colon. You didn't have to do any. Okay.
I didn't have to do that. But here's the thing. One of my friends who was stage 1, which is like the least, stage, whatever treatment she had and radiation she had, excuse me, it kind of damaged her pelvic area. And she uses a cane.
Okay.
So I've seen some people stage 3 and they're good. Stage 4, still working things out. I got some stage 4 survivor friends, but it just depends on that stage and and where you are in your treatment.
Well, I'm going to see if anyone else, if you have a question that you want to ask Miss Cheryl, because I can't think of everything. Feel free to ask, and we are talking about her journey as a colorectal cancer conqueror. She does a lot of advocating for CRC. I've seen your pictures. I've seen your strong arm selfies. I love it. For those of you who don't know, I met Miss Cheryl in Minnesota. What was that? November?
It was October because that's when
Was
my
it October?
grandson was born. It was October.
And she just has this personality and this outlook on life that's kind of infectious. So I definitely wanted to have you on to share your story with us. But if anybody else has a question, just go ahead and proceed.
I have a quick question. Cheryl, why are you so passionate about educating everyone about colorectal cancer?
Well, thank you, Tiffany. And because I almost died, right? I was misdiagnosed as having GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease, and being lactose intolerant. I didn't know back then how to ask questions. All I know is my doctor says, hey, you don't have cancer. Never should have been the case. So if I can save, and this is what I do. I don't know if you can see this. This is the C train.
Mhm.
I refer to myself as the C train because I said, if I can save the world one caboose at a time,
Okay,
that's what I want to do.
like that.
I say I like being on track, having people on track to get these colonoscopies. I'm seeing too many young people. We know that by the year 2030, colorectal cancer is going to be the #1 cancer killer in individuals ages 20 to 49.
Mhm.
That's only about 6 years.
Yeah.
And now we have people in their 20s and 30s passing away.
Yeah.
One anomaly was that somebody just buried their 15-year-old, and there was a 4-year-old that had stage 4 colorectal
Oh,
cancer.
wow.
You know, why is that? Right. And that's why I'm so passionate, because we have to get the word out. And again, now we're working on, I think something was just passed, that we're getting the age, getting colonoscopies under the age of 40 now, or 45, under the age of 45. So, but yeah, that's my passion, because may not have been here if I didn't say, hey, you know what, let me get that referral. So,
Yeah.
and so that's why I'm the C train. I said, I'm your conductor on the C train.
Okay.
We want to save the world one
One
caboose at
caboose
a
at a
time.
time.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The other thing to share too is, because I was reading an article or watching a news segment, I'm not sure which one it was, but it was mentioned that you don't necessarily have to have like a family history. They're thinking that it's not so much genetics at this point. It's like environmental factors. It's the food that we're eating. It's stuff like this that are causing these diagnoses. So did you have, or do you have a family history of colorectal cancer?
You know, that's a very good question. Here's the thing. I was adopted at age 9 months old.
Okay.
So I never knew anything about my family until I met my biological family in 2021.
Oh, wow.
At that point, I found out I had a cousin who was stage 4. He had been stage 4 for 6 years. Stage 4 for 6 years. So that gave me a piece of something. Hey, there is colon cancer in my family, my bloodline,
Yeah.
and also breast cancer. But and so I have another cousin who just texted me that we have a cousin. This is a more distant cousin for me, maybe third or fourth, but he was just diagnosed with a stage 4 last week.
Oh, good.
So so it can be in your family, and if it's in your family and you're not 45 years old, I mean, if it's in your family and you're not 45 years old, yeah, you want to get screened at 45. But if you have, like my daughter, like I was diagnosed at 56, she needs to be screened 10 years
Mhm.
before my diagnosis. So at 46, which should be 46 next year, or two, yeah, no, 44. Yeah, 2 years. So she needs to get hers done. The other thing is our young people, please let young people know when you go to the doctor, if they say, oh no, you're too young, they really, really, really have to say, something's wrong with my body. I need a colonoscopy. I need to know what's going on. And that's one thing. A lot of people know that Chadwick Boseman passed away from colon cancer. But the thing is, one thing his wife Simone said, she is angry because they didn't know.
Yeah.
Education is key, and that's why I can appreciate Cassandra Cares and Tiffany, you're out there rocking it too. I can appreciate everybody who's out there saying, listen, people, love your butt. My doctor knows, I tell, do your duty, check your booty.
Protect your butt.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Anybody else have any question for Miss Cheryl?
Well, hi, Miss Cheryl. This is Kendra. I'm sorry I came on late, but I'm Shamika, you kind of already took the question I was going to ask, but I'm going to kind of ask it in a different way. So, if it's not with colorectal cancer, do you know if there is testing for genetic markers? I was sharing with a friend earlier this week that I have cancer on both sides of my family, and my husband's mother had pancreatic cancer. And so about maybe 5 years ago, we did the DNA testing to where they could check for potential cancer markers. So I'm wondering if that would even apply, or something that could be um, screened for. I don't know. Are you aware of that?
It is, absolutely. They do those biomarkers. Also, I met a young lady whose brother was 27 years old when he passed away, stage 4, and they found out, and I don't know much about Lynch syndrome, but they did the testing, to your point, Ms. Kendra, they did that testing and they found out all of them had this Lynch syndrome gene.
Oh
And,
God.
yeah, and so there are tests for that, and I know if you go to, and if I can give this website out, if you go to fightcolorectalcancer.org, there that's who I there are two organizations that I really do volunteer for, and that's Fight CRC, which is fightcolorectalcancer.org, and coloncancercoalition.org. But at Fight CRC, you'll see the information, and you can ask the information about the testing. But yes, it's out there.
Yeah, Fight CRC has an app that I use too, and they have like, I guess, forums or some type of chat room or something that you
Yeah, the webinars you can go to. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's interesting that you asked that question. Yeah, look into that.
I want to ask one more question, and we're at the like 4-minute mark. How often do you have to go and do your like testing?
You know, I supposed to get a colonoscopy every 3 years. However, in 2022, I had 2 polyps, and one was benign and one was precancerous. So, you know, for somebody like me who's had colon cancer, when you go and they say, oh, it's precancerous, it's like it gives me a whole nother level of anxiety. And so I'm planning to have one this year, not 2025, because you know, I just want to get, I'm not claiming anything, but I just want to make sure I'm you know, I'm getting ahead of things.
And how often do you have to go in for like labs?
Well, it's my scans normally yearly for scans. Like
Okay.
I have oncologist that I go to and have to, you know, go through the MRI and get the CT scan. So I do that yearly.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up?
Well, you know, I just appreciate everything you all are doing. It was such a pleasure to meet you and Tiffany when we were
Thank you.
working together, and we said we were going to stay connected, and I appreciate that. If it works out and I could come to your event in September, I don't know. I know I have something else. I think we have ours in September. I think yours is September 14th. I'll try my best to make it. And I just went to one in California for a fellow ambassador. So my thing is to just, you know, support where I can and get the message out there
We
about
definitely
the
appreciate it.
importance of early detection.
Early detection. And I keep saying, and I say it again and again, this is one cancer type that's preventable.
Yes. When they go in there, my cousin just had her colonoscopy yesterday, and she had 1 polyp. She'll get the results in a week. But people don't understand, if you don't have any polyps, you're good for 10 years. You're good for 10 years. So it's like, be uncomfortable. And I have a t-shirt that says, don't sit on it too long.
I need one of those.
Don't sit on it any longer.
I need one of those. Well, Miss Cheryl, we're almost at time. Again, this meeting has been recorded. It will be uploaded on the YouTube channel. It's a pleasure talking to you as always. And
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you and speaking with you again. To everyone who joined, I appreciate you all, and we will chat soon.
Thank you. Thank you
All
all.
right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.